Now that we know the next commanders in Rise of Kingdoms are going to be leadership and ranged, the number one question that people are thinking about is actually not about those commanders. It's about cavalry. People are wondering about cavalry. Where is the next cavalry commander? Who is it? When is it coming? So today we're going to try to predict what the next cavalry commanders are going to have on their kit coming to Rise of Kingdoms, and I'm going to predict when they're going to come as well. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, before we begin, of course, as you guys know, I am a partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms, which means they support a few videos on the channel every single month, just like this one. But the number one support comes from you guys dropping a thumbs up and subscribing down below, because we are officially on the road to 100,000 subscribers. Also, side note, clearly this is a completely different room than I am normally in because I just moved, and this is the first video that I am recording here, and hopefully you can't hear the airplanes, and trust me, it's gonna look a little bit better back there at some point. Also, if you ever hear meowing in the videos now, it's gonna be this young man right here. His name is Theo, and he said you better like the video or he's gonna start biting me. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's jump right in here. And as you guys know, the most recent cavalry commander to land in Rise of Kingdoms is of course King Arthur, with none other than Subutai, and both of these are combo commanders, and I suspect that the next cavalry release will also follow in these footsteps. And that's because if we take a look at commanders like Bai Chi, we can see a pattern here, and that pattern is that the first ever infantry with the smite tree, which was William Wallace and Scipio Aemilianus, well, their very next release also followed up that with another smite tree. Now, I know that Ragnar Prime was in there a little bit, and we're going to talk actually more about Ragnar Prime later in the video because he does actually play a role in my predictions here for cavalry. But when it comes to the actual Wheel and Mightiest Governor event, we can see that when they released a brand new talent tree, the smite tree, we got it at least 2 times in a row to sort of flesh out the number of commanders that actually have access to those talents. So in the same vein as that for cavalry, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, especially because we see they actually went back and changed Bertrand, gave him the combo tree to give season 2 players access to these talents. I can't imagine that the next cavalry release is going to just let King Arthur be the only combo commander. And as we always do in these videos, let's jump over to the commander release order spreadsheet that I built quite a while ago, and it's kind of a rough estimation as to when these commanders actually came out, starting all the way back with the season 1 commanders, the gold key commanders, and coming all the way down here to our most recent releases with Emperor Qin, Matthias, and Afonso. Now, as you guys know, Afonso and Matthias are actually not even in the game yet, and if we come over here, we'll see that they're actually not even in the upcoming Mightiest Governor event either, which means of course Afonso is also not going to be on the Wheel of Fortune unless something insane happens. And since we don't expect them to be on the September 8th Mightiest Governor, then the next release cycle would be the 23rd. So that would put the release of these commanders 70 days after the release of Shapur. And since 70 days is the most average release window for commanders, we could expect the next cavalry commanders to come 70 days after September 23rd, which would land on December 2nd. However, this is of course an average, and so it could come 56 days after September 23rd, which would have them land on November 18th, or it could be 84 days after, which would be December 16th. Now, like I said, I think 70, because it's the average, that's probably the most likely, unless we have one specific scenario occur before the end of the year, and we're going to talk about that later in this video, because I do think that Rise of Kingdoms could throw a wrench in things, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But let's assume that it is just an average 70-day release cycle. We could expect these new cavalry commanders to come at the beginning of December of this year. So that's almost exactly 3 months to the day from today. So if you want the latest and greatest cavalry commanders, I would start saving your legendary commander sculptures right now. Okay, so let's start to fill in this chart a little bit here. Okay, as we already said, I do think that both these commanders are going to be combo damage commanders. It would just make the most sense. I don't think that they're going to just release one combo set of commanders and then be done with it. And of course, if we take a look at every release for the past couple of years, every release has had at least one open field versatility commander and one either rally or garrison commander. And so if we take a look at this upcoming cavalry release, what can we expect from the Mightiest Governor event commander? Well, if we take a look in the past here, most recently we got Subutai, who was a rally commander, and before that we had Eleanor, who was a garrison commander, and before that we had Justinian, who was a rally commander. Before that we had Jan Ziska, who was a a Garrison commander. Then before that we had Bertrand, who used to be a rally commander, he is no longer, and before that we had a Garrison commander who also simultaneously launched alongside Zhang Yu, which was rally, but that was back before this sort of trend started. That 2021 was when things started to change quite a little bit. But if we look at this trend, I think it's pretty clear that it alternates between Garrison, rally, etc. And so what we can expect next would be a Garrison commander. Okay, so far I suspect that at the beginning of December we're going to be getting 2 combo calves, 1 Garrison, 1 open field. I think that's pretty standard. I think that that is like the most likely outcome for Cavalry. But now we have to ask ourselves, what are these commanders going to do? Like what stats are they going to have? How much damage factor are they going to have? Are they going to deal single target damage? Are they going to be AoE, or are they going to go the route of somebody like Attila, where they give themselves a mega buff for a few seconds that really pumps out a ton of white numbers? Well, this is where things start to get a little bit more fuzzy, because if we take a look at, and I know what you guys are thinking, right? You're thinking more along the lines of the open field commander. I know most players care about the open field commander, which I do think is more interesting here, because again, if we take a look at the Garrison, right? Like let's just talk about the Garrison really quick. Before this we had Subutai, who was a single target damage commander. Before that we had Eleanor, single target damage. Before that we had Justinian, who was single target damage. Before that we had Yanziska, also single target damage. Before that we had Bertrand, who used to be single target damage, he is no longer. So okay, it seems to be the trend that the rally Garrison commanders are single target damage, at least for Cavalry. Whether that continues to be the case, I have no idea, but I think that it would be pretty safe to assume that it'll be a single target damage commander. But what about the open field commander? Well, if we take a look here, King Arthur, our most recent Cavalry release, was a super powerful 3 target AoE combo damage commander. Before that we had Belisarius Prime. Before that we had Hua. Before that we had Joan of Arc. Before that we had Nevsky, and before that we had Zhang Yu, who kind of breaks the trend. He's not really an open field commander, but if we look at these wheel commanders, you'll see that Zhang Yu was AoE, Nevsky was single target, Joan of Arc was AoE, Hua was single target, and then Belisarius Prime kind of breaks the trend here. Belisarius Prime is also a single target damage commander, and then of course King Arthur was AoE. And so we don't really see a perfect pattern here between single AoE. Belisarius Prime kind of ruined that. Okay, so at this point I think that the trend here is not super strong. I don't think that like just because it seems like it's kind of skewed that way, that I mean we already broke the trend once, so really that kind of throws a wrench in everything, right? Like we can't really rely on that. And if we look at other troop types, for example, like Nui Liang, and then we see Hermann Prime, these were back-to-back AoE releases for archers. And if we look at Baichi and Ragnar Prime, those are also back-to-back AoE releases for infantry. But as you guys know, Ragnar Prime is not part of the normal release cycle, so I don't really want to count that. But even still, I don't think that we can confidently say that just because the last one was AoE that the next one will be single target. Honestly, it's 50-50, right? And realistically, I think that Cavalry kind of need another AoE commander, in my opinion, because right now I am currently in KvK and I can confidently tell you that my Hua is my worst performing commander in my entire 5 army lineup, and it's almost not even close. Like his damage output is just not, like, just single target damage, just it simply cannot compete. It simply cannot compete anymore in the open field. It is just like people are already trying to run Joan with Philip and then running William behind Arthur just to get that single target damage out of the field, because it's just not enough. Like it doesn't scale. It only hits 1 target, and there's no debuff here either, right? And so there's always been an expiration date stamped on Hua's forehead, and it was pretty much just always going to be whenever there's another cav that hits harder than this, and that's it. There's nothing special about his kit. Yeah, his rage cycle is a little bit faster for the first portion of him entering battle, but like there's really nothing special about his kit, really. Like, let's be honest here, it's nothing crazy, right? So that being said, and on top of that, right, we also have Belisarius Prime, and so even with Belisarius's super strong debuff on the expertise here, even this super strong debuff doesn't make him good enough to bring him up into the meta. Now, part of that could be the mobility tree, right? But also he doesn't hit even as hard as Hua, right? So it's like no matter how you slice it, even if they gave us a single target damage commander, the damage factor would have to be so insanely high, and they would also need to have some like really good stats, like as many stats as Hua. You'd also need some sort of crazy debuff like Belisarius Prime. You'd have to have, you know, obviously the combo talent tree would be really nice here, right? But even still, even if he is a single target damage combo, you're gonna put him behind King Arthur, so I guess his talent trees don't really matter. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's very possible he's single target, and if that's the case, then he would need some insane kit beyond that to make him relevant. Otherwise, it would be a commander that I would honestly consider skipping. And I'm gonna be honest here, the only thing that would really save a single target damage commander for Cavalry for me would be if one of their skills has some sort of instant proc combo damage AoE, right? Kind of like Hermann Prime's 4th skill, right, where it's like a 10% chance to deal 200 damage factor to 3 targets, or something maybe even like Zhuge Liang's 4th skill, where he has, you know, the marquee effect and then he removes it to deal 1500 damage to 3 targets, right? Like those types of skills, right, where like there's kind of a mini AoE built into the kit somewhere. If he has that and a single target damage like stronger than Hua, then okay, maybe I will consider investing in him. But like that would be sort of the only scenario where I think a single target damage Cav can really perform in this meta. Now that Emperor Qin is in the game, now that my pincer formation is starting to cook with gas, now that my Arthur's Delta formation is starting to really pop off, like there's just so much AoE and so much extra damage from so many different places that a single target damage, it's just it ain't it, right? So let's start to think about like, okay, if this commander is single target, what should the damage factor look like? Okay, well, bare minimum would be a Subutai 3000 damage factor combo attack. Okay, that is bare minimum what this cavalry commander would need. And on top of that, there would have to be some sort of, like I said, the 4th skill on Hermann Prime, the 4th skill on Zhuge Liang. There's got to be some like chance or way to have a smaller AoE pop off occasionally, plus the rest of his kit has to look like Hua. It has to be a tremendous amount of attack, defense, march speed, all of that, right? Like all the things that we know to be true, maybe a little bit of all damage, like 5-10% all damage in there, right? Like if it's going to be single target, all those things have to be true, and ideally there would be a small debuff in there with that AoE, right? Like that would be the perfect case scenario. With that being said, if he's not single target, let's say he is AoE, let's say the developers realize that single target is just not part of the meta anymore, and they realize that, okay, it's only fair, cavalry need to get another AoE commander. Okay, what are we looking at from a damage factor perspective? Well, I would say if we look back, right, there's been a couple of different eras throughout Rise of Kingdoms, and for the longest time you'll notice that a lot of the strongest AoE commanders had a 2000 damage factor AoE, right? We look at Zhuge Liang, we look back at Joan of Arc Prime, we look back at Guan Yu, we look at CPO Prime, like all these commanders who were really solid in the meta, obviously Hermann Prime as well. These are all 2000 damage factor AoE, and I think if we look back at the most recent releases, starting with Ragnar Prime and beyond, I don't think we're going to see any more 2000 damage factor AoEs. I just don't. It's not enough, right? As power creep takes over and things get stronger and stronger, I think that a 2000 damage factor AoE for this upcoming commander would simply be too weak. So I'm honestly expecting at least 2400 damage factor for this commander, whether it's 3 target or 5 target, I don't know. Now realistically, how many 5 target AoE commanders have we seen for cavalry? The answer is 0. So honestly, I would not hold your breath for a 5 target cavalry AoE commander. I don't think it's going to happen. That just doesn't seem like their thing. So I would expect at least 2400 3 target, with the rest of their kit looking as good as King Arthur or better, right? I mean, obviously King Arthur's already hitting harder than that, and I feel like this is kind of an exception almost. Like cavalry needed King Arthur badly, and so I don't know if they need another King Arthur, but like something close to it. And again, this is a bare minimum. I would say bare minimum a 3 target 2400, if not a 26-2800 or something along those lines, right? I don't expect this to be a 3000 damage factor 3 target AoE. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think that makes sense, but somewhere between 2400 and 2800 I think is perfectly reasonable if we're gonna have a 3 target damage factor AoE. Okay, obviously if there's a debuff involved, involved in that AoE, then it's going to be on the lower end, like it'll be closer to 2400. If it does not have a debuff and it's just raw damage, then we can expect something closer to 2800 in my opinion. I think that's typically how they try to balance out these active skills. So let's do that just to make this a little bit easier to understand. Okay, when it comes to the Garrison Commander, I expect same sort of thing, right? If it's going to have some sort of crazy debuff or active effect, it'll be closer to 2800. If it does not, if it is just raw damage, then I can expect somewhere around 3000, just like we saw with Subutai. So that's kind of it when it comes to my predictions for these upcoming commanders. However, there's one more thing, and I mentioned this earlier, and this is really important. So if you guys stuck around this far, then you're going to get a little treat. Okay, and if you appreciate that, drop a thumbs up down below. You've made it this far already. But as I said earlier, we have to talk about Ragnar Prime. And why is that? Well, Ragnar Prime came with a special KvK story. That's how he landed into the game. He was not part of the Wheel of Fortune, the Mightiest Governor event. He was an event commander who eventually found his way into the daily special offer. He also found his way into the legendary tavern and maybe some other events as well. I don't think he's in the commander swap event if I remember correctly, but he is in here. So there's other ways to get him now, but he first came into the game randomly through the introduction of a new event along a new KvK story, King of All Britain. And the developer said last year that they plan on releasing one special KvK story every single year, and that means that maybe, not guaranteed, but maybe with the upcoming release of whatever the special KvK story is for 2025, which we haven't seen yet, maybe we can get a new commander release. And what troop type would be most likely to get a commander here? Well, there's a couple of different options. First of all, it could be ranged commanders, right? Because ranged actually did just get a new commander reveal, but they didn't get two new commanders. They only got one, right? Now, of course, they did also get the season 2 commanders. So, I mean, that could be part of the reason why they technically got 3 commanders, right? One way to look at it. But from an official commander release window, they only got one. It's Afonso, right? Who is coming in probably the next Wheel of Fortune. But one of the reasons why they could have only released just Afonso is because the upcoming KvK could be potentially ranged related, and therefore it could have a ranged special commander release. But if we're being honest, I think that Cavalry is the troop type that might need a new commander most, right? I think like realistically that would make the most sense, right? And especially if we're going to make it a skill damage commander, right? And I know that that sounds a little bit yucky because we're talking about like halves should be combo, right? But remember, we had smite damage for infantry, and then we got a skill damage Ragnar Prime, and surprise surprise, he's really strong, right? And so the idea that we can't have a strong skill damage cav anymore is insane. Of course we can. Even King Arthur can hit really hard as a skill damage commander. Like, let's not pretend that that's not the case, right? So I think Cavalry could also be eligible for a new special KvK story commander, right? Which would mean that we could get 3 new cav commanders before the end of the year, right? The Wheel of Fortune, the Mightiest Governor, and a special KvK Cavalry. Kind of insane, but I told you there'd be a special treat here. Well, what would that be? Well, over on the official Rise of Kingdoms Instagram page, they just posted this a few minutes ago. This was 55 minutes ago at the time of recording this. It says September is here. I know you can't see this. This is in the caption. I just don't want to reveal a bunch of people's actual names and photos in the comment section, okay? But the caption says September is here, and you know what that means. The Rise of Kingdoms anniversary is live. A full month of exciting events, surprises, and rewards is waiting for you. Let's kick things off with this image. Take a close look and see if you notice anything hidden or mysterious inside. Share your guesses in the comments along with your governor ID, and lucky governors will receive a reward pack with 500 gems. So they're telling us to look closer at this image and tell them what we see. Okay, let's blow this image up a little bit bigger, and there's a couple of things to notice. Okay, first of all, we've got Cao Cao, Seong-Gye, Artemisia, and Alexander the Great, and they're running through a desert towards what looks like Rise of Kingdoms version of the dark portal from World of Warcraft. And on the other side of that portal is what looks like an Egyptian building. So we're thinking about, okay, they're in the desert, they're going through a portal towards an Egyptian building. Maybe this has something to do with Ark of Osiris, right? Maybe there's going to be a big Ark of Osiris change, or another game mode like Ark of Osiris, or maybe it's going to be a new special KvK story that surrounds the ancient Egypt warfare. rare, right? That could absolutely be the case. I think those are perfectly reasonable, especially because we see Artemisia in the photo, and if you take a look up here in the top left right behind Cao Cao, this is, from what I can tell, Leonidas, right? We see Leonidas right here with his shield out. He's jumping through the air with his spear above his head, just like he is in this exact pose right here. This is the, if you're having a trouble seeing it here, this is his pose, except he's facing the portal, right? He's jumping down. You can see this is the spear right here. This is his hand, his arm, his body, his shield, his front leg, his back leg right here. Now, of course, Artemisia and Leonidas never fought each other in history, right? But I believe in the cinematic for the Greece release, I feel like I remember them facing off in a desert like cinematic, right? So I mean, who knows, maybe we get something along those lines. I'm not really sure. Maybe this has nothing to do with it. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it and they just decided to put Leonidas up there. I don't know. Maybe this is hinting at a Leonidas Prime. Probably not, right? Even though I think he does deserve it. We also see some symbols in these pillars right here, and truthfully, I don't know if I can really pinpoint what they mean. It doesn't seem super important or relevant to me, but maybe you guys can take a closer look yourself and let me know in the comment section below. But really, I think what they're pointing at here is the portal, right? Clearly it's the portal and what's on the other side of the portal. So I think they're hinting at a new special KvK story, or obviously something to do with Ark of Osiris. So all of that to say that clearly something big is coming, and with that comes the possibility of another cavalry commander or a cavalry adjacent commander, right? I mean, if we really take a look at Ragnar Prime, he is an infantry commander, but in his special KvK he becomes more of a universal commander, right? So who knows, but if that is the case, then, you know, hopefully if the upcoming combo commander for open field is single target damage, then hopefully the sort of special KvK story commander is AoE, right? That would be absolutely gorgeous. I would love that. I think everyone would love to get 2 new cav open field commanders plus a garrison, right? Like that would be fantastic. And then just to wrap up the video here, who do I think these commanders are going to be? Well, truthfully, it's really anybody's guess. There's really no way to actually know, but could it be a prime commander? Maybe. We haven't seen any prime commanders in the 10th generation, which either could mean that we're overdue for a prime commander, or they're going to be skipping primes for this generation entirely. If we take a look at the 9th generation here, we saw cavalry were the only ones that got a prime commander in their actual release window. Of course, Ragnar Prime came out just as a, you know, special event type of thing, so it would be a little bit silly for cavalry to be the only ones with a prime commander again. But hey, maybe they will, I don't know, or maybe these releases won't, and then if we get a special KvK commander, maybe that will be the prime. Who knows? I would love a Leonidas Prime, by the way. Like he deserves it. If we look at the 8th generation, we only got 1 prime commander, that was Herman Prime. If we look at the 7th generation, we got only 1 prime commander, that was Cavalry again. The 6th generation, we got Scipio Prime and Boudica Prime, right? So I don't know, it seems like every generation has at least 1 prime commander. So okay, maybe right, like we could absolutely see a prime commander here, no doubt about that, right? It would be, honestly, it'd be kind of surprising if this was the first generation to ever not have a prime commander since their release, but it totally could be the case. Of course, as I always say in these videos, there is a list of commanders that I would like to see. We have Oda Nobunaga, Vlad the Impaler, Hattori Hanzo, Hammurabi, King Baldwin IV. We have King Louis IX, King Tut from ancient Egypt, right? Which, I mean, if that 7th anniversary thing is to be believed, maybe King Tut would be in the game. I have no idea. Of course, I'd love to see Sun Tzu Prime. I don't know if that's going to be a thing here, but either way, those are just commanders that I think would fit Rise of Kingdoms lore and history, and also would be really cool and commanders that I want to see. But guys, with that being said, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, drop a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton. It helps get this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video, and comment down below your thoughts on the upcoming cavalry release. What do you think it's going to be? What do you expect? What are you hoping for? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.